Savor the Flavors. My name is Brittany Allyn, and today I'm in the historic Ybor City area of Tampa, Florida. The area was named after Vicente Martinez Ybor, who was a Spanish-born cigar manufacturer who moved his operations to this area in 1869. Now, of course, this brought a lot of Spanish and Cuban cigar workers to the area. The area is also known as the Latin District. So here I am in the Latin District, craving a French special, a French classic for lunch. What to do? We'll savor the flavors, of course, of La Creperia. La Creperia, Spanish for the French Le Creperie. By now you've probably guessed what it was I was craving, and you were right, crepes. Crepes are basically a thin pancake, and they're made out of a batter of milk, flour, eggs, butter, and a little bit of salt. And they can be served by themselves, dusted with sugar, or served with a variety of fillings. And variety is the understatement. Here on the menu, Chef Dino has 66, yes, I counted them, 66 different choices of crepes. And if that's not enough, there's a list of ingredients that you can add to his existing creations to, well, sort of build your own. Now, I think it'd be a good idea, before you leave the house, to look at the menu online, because deciding what to order could take a while. To drink, I decided to start with cider. Crepes originated in the Brittany or Bretagne region of France. It's the northwest region of France. And though it's known for crepes, it's also known for the production of cider. And so quite often they're served together. So of course I was pleased to know that they had cider on the menu. And this of course is just a sparkling cider. I love that. Tart apple flavor with a little fizz. Perfect. What a great way to start things out on a warm day in Tampa. Crepes can be served either savory or sweet, and I decided to order a savory one. The savory ones are made with whole wheat flour, and maybe it was because I was in the Latin district that the Opa Mexicana sounded good. Actually, it's sort of interesting. I feel like this dish really sums up this whole restaurant experience. A French crepe in the Latin district, and get this, made by a Greek chef. So, Opa Mexicana crepe. Perfect, right? Now, let's get into this. Of course, the ingredients, it's Mexican, and it looks like the crepe is cooked lovely. I'm just going to actually start down here at the point, because that's probably where all the goodness is. Let's see. Oh, yeah. It looks like there's some beef in it, and some corn. It's topped with salsa and, of course, sour cream. There's cheese in there. It's very flavorful. A little bit of heat going on there, which you would expect. Oh, wow. It is so delicious. It's sort of like a burrito in a crepe. Perfect, right? So good. You're going to love it. I couldn't come here and not order a sweet crepe, and this time I went very traditional. I got the Madame Suzette. There's sort of an interesting story or legend, perhaps, behind the dish Crepe Suzette. It dates back to 1895 when a young waiter was preparing a dish for the Prince of Wales, and he was working over a chafing dish and spilt a cordial, and of course it ignited, and he panicked. He thought maybe he had ruined the dish, and he didn't have time to make another. So he tasted it, decided it tasted pretty good, and so he served it to the prince. The prince loved it and asked him what the dish was called, and the waiter, being quick on his feet, said that he named the dish after the prince. The prince was in the company of a young lady, and he said, would it be all right if we named the dish after her instead? Madame Suzette. And so that's how the dish got its name, Crepe Suzette. Now, Crepe Suzette is just a thin crepe made with a light baking flour, and it has orange zest and some citrus juices, and it's sort of flambéed at the end with Creme Marnier. Let's taste. Whipped cream on the top, powdered sugar, very thin. Oh, wow. It is so citrusy. I love the flavor of the Creme Marnier. Wow. Very distinct orange flavor. It's like sweet and tart, gooey, delicious, all at the same time. La Creperia. Don't miss it. While dining at La Creperia, I was reminded of how versatile crepes can be. They're really a wonderful vessel for just about any flavor combination you can imagine. In fact, I think they make a great way to repurpose leftovers. Just mix on a batch of crepes and then send everyone to the refrigerator and see who can be most creative with fillings and toppings. Today I'll share with you 2 crepe recipes, one savory and one sweet, and some flavor combinations to go along with them. Think of them as recipes, but also think of them as a method, a basic crepe that you can make and adjust to suit your taste. I'll start with something savory, my Italian street fair crepe. And then for dessert, of course, a sweet crepe. I like to call it blueberry lemon bliss. Today we'll begin by preparing the blueberry compote to go with our blueberry lemon bliss. For that we need 12 ounces of blueberries, and we'll just put those in our saucepan. Oop, lost one. Get back there. And then add 3 tablespoons of sugar, just regular granulated sugar, and also 3 sprigs of fresh mint. Now you want to leave the leaves on the mint because later, halfway through cooking time, we're going to remove the mint sprigs. Now we're just going to heat this over medium heat and let this go for about 15 minutes. And as it cooks, the blueberries will break down and the sauce will thicken, and that wonderful mint flavor will get infused into the sauce. Beautiful. Now for the filling of our blueberry lemon bliss, just 2 ingredients. I have some mascarpone cream cheese. It's an Italian cream cheese, a little creamier than regular cream cheese. To that we're going to add 6 tablespoons of lemon curd. And we'll just mix this together. Okay, once that's combined, we are well on our way with our blueberry lemon bliss. Next, it's time to mix on some crepes. The blueberry compote looks and smells fabulous, and now it's time to get on with making the crepe batter. We're going to start with the batter for our blueberry lemon bliss, our sweet crepe. And here I have 1 cup of just regular all-purpose flour that's been sifted. You want to sift it to make sure there's no lumps. To that, we're going to add 1.5 cups of milk. I like to use 2% milk for this. And also 2 eggs and 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been melted. And then also a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now this is our basic crepe batter. Whenever I'm making a crepe, however, I like to sort of flavor the crepe itself to go with the fillings and toppings that I'm using. And so because this is a sweet crepe, I'm going to add just an 1/8 teaspoon of sugar to that, and also the zest of 1 lemon. And we're just going to whisk this together. Okay, and that is our sweet crepe batter. I love the smell of that lemon zest in there. It is fabulous. Now it is time to make our savory crepe batter. For that, again, a cup of flour, but for this I like to use wheat flour. I love wheat flour in a savory crepe. Again, it's been sifted. To that, we're going to add 1.5 cups of milk, 2 eggs, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been melted, and a half teaspoon of salt. Now for the Italian street fair crepe, I like to add a little Italian seasoning to the crepe batter. It's a wonderful herb blend of thyme, oregano, basil, marjoram, all sorts of great things in there. And again, we're whisking. Once it's nice and smooth, our batter is finished, and I find for the best results, it helps to refrigerate the batter for about an hour before making your crepes. Otherwise, they tend to bubble up, and that can cause the crepes to tear. You can even make the batter the night before if you want. I have some batter that I made earlier, and so I'll show you how I like to make crepes. I don't have one of those fancy crepe makers, but you don't need one to make great crepes. But you do need a good nonstick skillet. And here I have got a 10-inch skillet. It's 10 inches at the base, and that is what our recipe is based on. I always like to pre-measure my batter for each crepe. That way I know they'll all be the same thickness or thinness, if you will, and about a 1/4 cup per crepe is perfect. Now here's a few little hints or tips, if you will. I like to take my pan or my skillet and just sort of tip it, and then I'm going to pour the batter across the top and let it flow down over the pan, and then twist and turn the pan to coat it evenly with the batter. Just like that. And we're going to let that cook for about 2 minutes. Now, when you visit Tampa, I would encourage you to spend some time in Ybor City, especially if you are interested in cigars. Ybor City was once the cigar capital of the world, where they hand-rolled over 400 million cigars each year. It's no longer the cigar capital of the world, but the evidence is still there. We took this wonderful walking tour where you could go around and look at all of the wonderful buildings, the old buildings that were cigar factories. And if you're into architecture, it may interest you as well. After about 2 minutes, the crepe starts to pull away from the sides of the pan and the edges get brown. I like to take one of these spatulas and just flip the crepe like that, and we're going to cook it for another 30 seconds. When you visit Ybor City, you'll want to spend some time on 7th Avenue. That's where La Creperia is. And also there's lots of stores and restaurants and nightlife, but the one thing you won't want to miss is the cigar shops. You can purchase hand-rolled cigars or watch them making cigars, hand-rolling them right in front of you. After about 30 seconds, you'll want to remove the crepe from the pan to a platter and continue to make crepes until all of the batter is gone. And each recipe makes about 8 crepes. Now comes my favorite part of assembling crepes. We're going to start with one of our savory crepes for the Italian street fair crepe. You just take the crepe, place it in the pan. I've got this sort of heating over medium heat. We're going to take some of this wonderful mozzarella cheese and just kind of place it on 1/2 of the crepe. And I find it works good if you make the crepes even the day before so that they've cooled once before you do this. And then we're reheating them now. And then I like to take just a little foil and place this over the top. We'll just tent it so that cheese starts to melt. Earlier I browned some spicy Italian sausage. You can use whatever kind of Italian sausage you like. If you prefer the sweet, that's great too. And after I browned the meat in the fat that was rendered out, I sauteed some peppers and onions, and that will be our filling for the Italian street fair crepe. Now let's check. You can see the cheese is slightly starting to melt. That's what we want. I'm going to take some of my Italian sausage and just sort of sprinkle it on the bottom of the crepe. And you want to be careful when you're filling your crepes. You don't want to overfill them because they will tear and it'll make them hard to fold. So just a little bit of that Italian sausage in there. Or maybe a touch more. I think that's looking good. And now we're going to add some of those peppers and onions. I'm telling you, it smells like an Italian street fair in here. And those peppers and onions are still a little bit al dente. Perfect. And then I just take 1/2 of the crepe, fold it over the other, and then carefully fold the other half, just like that. Now I like to serve this with a little bit of my homemade marinara. You can use whatever type of spaghetti sauce you have or prefer. And I just like to kind of just ladle some of that on there like that. And then we're going to take our spatula and just place this on top of that marinara like that. And then what I like to do is just top it with a chiffonade of fresh basil. And that is an Italian street fair crepe. And now for dessert, why wait for something sweet? I'll set this over there. Get a clean plate. For the blueberry lemon bliss, I like to use, of course, one of the sweet crepes that we made earlier. And I find it works best to do this while the crepe is still cool, before you put it in the pan. Just spread that mascarpone mixture that we made earlier, over it, carefully. And when you're making crepes in a pan like this, sometimes when the batter goes up the sides of the pan, it can get kind of crispy. And I like to cut those edges off just for presentation. And to do that, I just take a pizza cutter and trim the edges of the crepe. Now, we'll just take that and put it in our pan. And as soon as you see the cheese start to melt, and it'll happen very quickly, I can see it sort of melting on the edges, and we'll just take it and fold it again. And for this, I love to use that wonderful blueberry compote that we made, and it's warm as well. We'll put that on our plate. Just a little bit of that. Looking good. And we're just going to take this and place it. Ooh, the cheese is starting to come out of there. It is beautiful, so good. And we're going to top that with just a little bit of powdered sugar. I like to dust it because it is a sweet crepe. And we have to have whipped cream, right? Just like that. And I think a little piece of fresh mint would be the finishing touch on that. That is blueberry lemon bliss. Now I'm going to clean up here, and I'm going to come right back. We'll taste, and I'll show you a beverage pairing to go with today's meal. Don't go away. To go along with our crepes, I decided to serve cider. Stick with tradition, right? However, I put a little twist on tradition. I decided to serve a hard cider, which means there's alcohol in it. I think this would make a great brunch menu, and instead of the typical bellinis or mimosas, a hard cider is a great option. This one is called Angry Orchard. It's one of my favorites. We'll just pour a little bit there. It's got a little fizz in it, which I like. And now let's taste. We'll start with our Italian street fair crepe. I like to start at the tip. It's like the tip of a soft serve cone, right? You start there. And we'll get some of everything in one bite. You can see, I'll turn this, how nice the filling is in there. A nice ratio of filling to crepe. That is like all your favorite Italian flavors in one bite. It's spicy from the sausage and the marinara. The cheese is nice and creamy. I love the wheat flour in the crepe. It's kind of got a nutty thing going on. That is fabulous. You'll want to try that. Now, dessert. I hate waiting for dessert. Sometimes I start with dessert. I'm going to have a sip of that cider. That is wonderful. Sweet, tart. You might not think that it goes well with that, but it actually does. It's very refreshing. And now, why wait? Dessert, right? Get a little bit of the blueberry, the whipped cream. I didn't call this blueberry lemon bliss for nothing. It is blissful. It is the perfect sweet and tart. That creamy filling is delicious, and that subtle mint flavor in the blueberry compote, divine. I think you're gonna love these recipes. Next time you're in Tampa, I'd love for you to stop by my friends at a Creperia, have some crepes, and see Ybor City. It's a wonderful place to visit. Between now and then, though, I'd love for you to try my recipes. Either way, I hope you take time to savor the flavors.